Hey y'all, today we have a Shimano Torium 20 that we're going to show you how to break down, service, and reassemble completely. Well, 90% I guess. So we're just going to get started. I'm going to start with the left side here where the clicker is. I'm doing these 4 screws on the outside. I'll show you this plate and all the parts that go into it, and then we'll work on the right side, or the spool, then the right side, or some variation of that order. Like I said, the screws are the same size. We're just going to pull them out to make sure. Then pop this off. Cool. Let me set this aside somewhere else. I don't want it there. Alright, so let's show you how to work on this side first, and then we'll continue on. I'll clean this gunk out just so you can see it. There's a bearing under there. Trust me. Yep, it's still there. That's good. Didn't disappear. And we're going to take it out. So to get that out, we're going to undo a clip that's inside here. Is it a pentagonal, hexagonal? I'm not sure. Can't count the sides. But start with the end that's open, and then just kind of work your way around until it pops up. But keep your finger over it so it doesn't go shooting around on you. These bearings I think are a little stiff in general, or tight inside there, so you may have to use a little bit of effort to get it out. Alright, there we go. That was more work than I wanted it to be, but c'est la vie. Alright, so we're going to clean off inside here. I think we'll end up just sticking the bearing back in after we take care of it as well. Then we'll work on the clicker portion of it. I just want to clean it off and add some oil to it. That's all I'm trying to do. Don't need to break down the grease that's in there. Just adding oil on top of it will suffice if the bearing is rolling fine. So we're just gonna stick this back in, hold it up, and then spin it. That oil, when you put it inside there, will help break that grease down and help it spin better. Yeah, you can see it working already, which is good. Drop of oil on top of that plate. Then let's just pop this back in. I didn't show you this, so I'll show it to you now. This comes off, so what you could do is, if I can get it off for you guys, you could in theory open this up, add some grease on the plate inside. I am not going to do that. I will wipe it off inside to make sure I don't see any evidence of salt getting inside there, which I really don't. So the guy probably takes care of his reels, which is good. I want to make sure this is all the way to the bottom. And then stick this back inside. Start with one end and find the channel that it's supposed to be in, and just kind of work it your way around. I think I need my glasses already. When you do that, make sure it's in the channel it's supposed to be in, and not sitting above or below it. This one is good looking. Alright. Next we're going to do the clicker part. You'll notice there are a few pieces on here. There is an E-clip at the top. So we're going to pop that. stick a small screwdriver between the openings on there, and then just kind of work that off. There's also a washer, which may or may not come off the way I'm doing it. And now we have this click tongue or pawl. I'm gonna keep this support over here and push with this to get it off. Take note of the orientation of the spring. You have the top of the spring, or the spring going through the top of the pawl, and then the other end going over the post. Now you have a spacer, then you have an E-clip down here as well. I'm just looking for the hole. Same deal for getting it off, just stick a screwdriver in and twist it. And now we can undo these 2 screws here so we can pull that plate off and take that post out. I'll show you what's underneath there. Up we go. Take your time when you do this because you have something that's under load right there. Keep my finger over that spring, push down on the click button, and now I can push this in to raise it up, or let me show you another way you can do it. Hold on to the plastic piece, push the spring in and pull up. Either one works. That is it. I'm just going to clean this stuff up, come back to you, show you how to put it all back in. Okay, so one thing to note here is when I'm cleaning these things up, what I'm using for the most part would be some sort of penetrant like Corrosion X, paper towels, toothbrush. What else do I use in general? Some other stuff. Can't think of it right now. But I don't use a lot of stuff to clean these things down. If it needs to, then I'll put it in a ultrasonic cleaner or something. But in general, I don't really do that. So what I'm going to go ahead and do while I'm here is add some grease to these screws for when I'm reassembling the reel. Now I'm going to use my fingers, the residual grease that I have on there, kind of wipe it on these things. I'm going to stick some in the hole right here. A little bit of my fingers to these washers. And that should be good. Looks good to me. Alright, so the first thing we're going to put back in would be this spring assembly. I'm going to add some grease to the tip right there. Stick this in, and it falls out all the time, so don't worry if it does. I'm going to start with the plastic piece in first, kind of hold my finger over it, and then use a screwdriver to push down and in on that side, looking just like that. Now we can stick our plate back over. And the way that's going to sit is like this, and then screw it in. Alright, now notice there's a notch or a shoulder on this click button that needs to fit through that slot right there. So we're just going to take it and push it through. Make sure you start on one end or the other. Do not push it in the middle, because it'll just be more difficult. When you get to the bottom, just turn it to make sure it drops in place and you can feel it. If you don't, you won't be able to get the pieces that you need to on there. First goes on one of those small washers, then our E-clip. I'm going to use my tweezers for this thing. Make sure that we are all the way down, and it looks like we are. Yeah, I feel a slot right there. Take my screwdriver, pop it on, Make sure it's all the way on. And I think it is. That spacer goes on. Next we'll take the spring and the pawl, hook the spring back up to it, and I'm going to put it over this end first, and then just kind of pull it over to the other side. I gotta support my pawl like that. Then I'm gonna push and drop it over. Now we can take that washer right there, stick that on, and then the final piece will be the E-clip. Still need my tweezers. And that is it. All right. I'm gonna add a little bit of grease around here, just because. Okay, so for the spool, there's only a few things that you need to do or can do, and I'm gonna show them to you. First, let me grab my tool. This is not, I'm gonna say not necessarily necessary, but you can pop that pin out, and I use this tool to get it out. And the reason I'm going to do it is because I want to make sure that the shaft has some grease on it, so that bearing doesn't get stuck on there. That's really the only reason I do it. Get up. Oh no, we lost the pin. We did lose the pin. Oh yeah. It dropped out. I was gonna stick it out with this. Alright, so let's pull this bearing off. There's a couple pieces under here. If they come off, great, put them back on. If they don't, you can leave them on there, or you can remove them and kind of clean up around that area. The one thing I won't do on this would be this side, and there's an E-clip there as well that you can remove this click ratchet. I'm gonna just kind of leave that on there versus taking it off. That looks good enough to me. Alright, so first just a light coat of grease, just kind of around this. A little bit on that shaft as well. This is what goes in through the pinion. You don't want that getting stuck or frozen to it, so a little bit of protection would be good. Clean that off. Just clean these things off is all I'm doing. Now we can wipe this bearing down and then add some oil to it as well. Where's my thing? Let's kind of work that in. Same thing like the left side that we did. And now we're going to put our little washers back on there. Stick that bearing back and then stick our pin back in. Light amount of grease on it would be good, but we have some in the hole already. And you could use a screwdriver, pliers to do it. It's still a difficult process, so I'm going to use this to kind of do it. Let me clean that hole out so we don't get any dirt back on it. Whatever method you use, just make sure it's going in straight when you put it back in. That's what really matters. That looks good. Now we can add a little bit of grease over here. Just right there on the shaft. Oh, by the way, if you're gonna ask me who makes this tool or where I got it from, it's from a guy named Ernie in California. I don't believe he's making them anymore. So there you go. So you don't need to ask me where I got it from. I just don't think he's making them anymore. So that's where I got it from though. There's more like this around online somewhere. Try eBay or even Amazon. You should be able to find something like this that will work for bearings on reels. Alright, so if you hear less noise in the background, that's because I forgot to turn my fan off. So now I just did. So it should be quieter for the video. So my apologies if it was kind of loud in the background before. Okay, so all I'm doing is removing the screws off of this rod clamp. That's about as far as we're going to go with this. We're going to clean it down or clean it up, but we're not going to remove those. Alright, so to get this off, we're going to undo that screw right there. Sometimes it works. Oh boy. Let's go sideways. Alright, now we can pull this off, or we can just start unscrewing it with that plate on there. Stick that over there. Kind of rock that up. Under here you'll find a washer. So you have that lock washer there. You have a washer under here. And notice when you turn this, there's a little noise that it makes. I don't know if I can do it now because I took the, oh, there we go. There you go. All right, so there's a clicker inside there. We're gonna unscrew this, back it all the way up. And I'll show you that clicker. And I'll show you a little trick to get it back on at the end as well. There's the click pin, and then you have a spring inside there. Make sure I didn't miss any washers under here. And then you have the stack of washers here. I'm going to undo these screws first, and then we'll work on getting these things off and lifting that up. Now these screws are going to be different sizes, so I'm going to lay them out so you can see them. And notice the orientation of the reel, so you know exactly where each screw goes. Alright, so that's how it looks according to your reel. These screws are different than the bottom screws, so take note of that as well. Alright, so set those to the side real quick. I'm just going to pull this up. Sometimes it's hard to pull it up. I don't know why that is. Let's pull these washers off first, and then we'll work on getting the cover off. I'll show you what that looks like as well. You have one washer there. You have two tension washers. They're different sizes, so do take note of that. And we're just going to pull. Whenever that happens, I kind of just work this back and forth to see what position is better. And don't worry about that piece. I'll show you that in a second. I'm just going to pull straight up. Get that washer off of there. And I think there's another one somewhere. I can't remember. Yeah, there it is. That black washer. You have a bearing under here that will, yeah, I knew it was bad. Okay. When I was testing this reel out, this felt like it was bad. And I felt like I was using the anti-reverse on this versus this instant anti-reverse. I have one to replace it, so that's fine. It was kind of pricey. Alright. I'm sorry, I got sidetracked there. I apologize. Anyhow, what was I saying? Oh, there's a bearing on top. Then you have the anti-reverse clutch there. That anti-reverse, that AR clutch needs to be popped out. You can usually push it up with your hand after you remove the bearing. But it might be difficult, so you might have to press it out. Anyhow, so that's that. Then you have your gears. This is all frozen up. Holy moly. It is. Oh man, I didn't see that coming. Alright, you have your instant anti-reverse sleeve. Then you have this, that, oh good, came off. I'll show you that in a second. You have two screws here to remove the cover for the spring dog. Trying to see what I want to use on it. And I do apologize for getting sidetracked at all this stuff. If you know me, that happens. Now we can pull this straight up together. Let's get this cover off. And you can pull it up together or just let it come out. Just don't bend the tines on these on the dog, because then you just have to reshape it. This one feels like it has to be reshaped anyhow, so no big deal there. Pull this straight up. You saw that I pulled the springs out because they stuck to the cover versus staying on top of here. I'll pull that out just so you can kind of see it. Then you have this that just comes straight up. This is becoming a mess. Ugh. Alright, the last piece is to get the shaft out. The way you do that is you remove the E-clip on the bottom. And I'm going to take it out just so you can see it. Alright, there we go. Now there's a washer on here that you have to remove in general. Doesn't always need to. Sometimes that washer there will stick this in place because it just doesn't sit properly on there. I can't even get that washer out. This reel is worse than I thought it was. I really, honestly, I gotta be honest with you guys. I thought it was a better shape. I really did. Ew. Okay. You have a washer there. You have a washer that goes on top. That washer can be, I think I've seen copper sometimes on that. Don't remember. But yeah, that's it. Alright, so let's show you the breakdown of the drag stack so you can see that. Then I'm going to turn this camera off, clean this stuff up, replace that anti-reverse clutch, and then come back to you guys. Wow. Wow. This is nasty. Yeesh. Okay, so you saw what it came out. You have this washer on the bottom. You have the gear. You have that washer. Don't put it back in. Didn't mean to do that. That washer, metal washer. Then you have another washer that are all stuck together. Don't know if I'm off camera or not. I apologize. And I will tell you now, just in case you say, Barry, you're kind of boring, so I'm going to turn this off. This has two notches on it. The middle one, those two notches face down into the main gear, not facing up. That washer, and then the final piece will be this beveled washer. The raised end will be facing up towards the handle, and obviously vice versa. So there you go. All right, I'll get this all cleaned up, replace. Oh wait, one more thing. I'm sorry about that. Let's take this cap off just because there's nothing under there. To get this off, let's say you ever want to change that eccentric spring or something. you gotta undo that screw. Note the orientation of how it's set up. And this might go flying on you, so be careful. It's kind of scary actually. Aye. As you get to the top, it gets tighter because all the tension is starting to release on it. At least that's my theory. Oh, it did go flying. I'm sorry guys. Let me grab that really quick. I was trying to show you what it looked like before I pulled it out, and then it just kind of dropped and fell apart. Anyhow. Alright, so I'm going to get this all cleaned up. Then come back to you and show you how to put everything back together. Alright, I'll see you guys in a bit. Alright, so here's the old anti-reverse clutch. You can see inside there's just so nasty. And when these things get like that, it is very difficult to refurbish these or get them to work properly again. Sometimes you can, I just wouldn't trust it. And here's the new one. You see how it looks so much different inside there. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is grease these screws that go on the outside. Just like I did for the non-handle side or the left side of the reel. I'm also going to grease these other screws as well, just because my main concern usually is the ones on the outside of the reel, but since we're here, alright, so the first thing we're going to do is the lever. Add a little bit of grease around there. A little bit on the outside. This washer goes there. Now, if you look at this, you'll see there's a little notch right there. That's going to fit inside that channel, kind of like so, just like that. Let's kind of grease this up. It's going to sit up with that post facing upwards. Let's get our lever and get that put on. That goes over it just like that. Push that through. Make sure it goes all the way up. Now we're going to make sure that that notched end on this piece right here stays in place as we put this in. You essentially want that notched piece right there under this piece, kind of looking just like that. So it'll look, when you're doing it, like that. Just a visual for you. And then you'll have the spring sitting like that. So I'm going to take this, stick that in the hole, just like that. And now I'm going to take this piece and kind of play with it until I get it in place. Put it through that hole right there. Kind of turn and push, get it in place. And then you're going to kind of rotate this thing, the lever, until you get it set, which it is. Then let's just screw it in. Now notice I'm holding on to the to all the pieces here because I don't want anything slipping on me. When I get to the bottom, that's going to flip back to free spool. So just be prepared for it if you do, if it's in the engaged position. By that time it's probably set anyhow, so you don't need to worry too much about it, but just in case. Lock it down, test it out, make sure it's still good, and we're in business. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is put the shaft in. We're going to grease a little bit of these spots first. some around there, some inside that hole around these posts, around there where that jack plate just kind of sits, around there where that dog sits. And you can certainly grease these holes where the screws are going to go. And maybe even a little bit on the back side right there. So we're going to take this, touch of grease on the bottom, get our washer, just kind of stick that over it like that, and then we're going to push it through. Now it does get a little bit tricky here because you have to find a way to get this on it. So essentially what I would do is drop that shaft down slightly, take this washer, stick it over it inside or over that hole, and then push the shaft up through it as I kind of support it. And again, that's because I said this thing has a tendency to get locked in there somehow, so it makes it difficult to get it over it. And you do need it flush because you need to get that E-clip on there. Okay, so that's done. We're going to take that E-clip, stick it over it, make sure it's in the slot. Then I'm going to push it on there. Alright, there we go. And do make sure that it's in all the way. Alright, so now we can put on the gears and the washers. So let's go ahead and grease this up. Kind of just drop that down there. We're gonna put on the dog first. I'm gonna just a light amount of grease on it, and that's just for this dog. I want to see how this feels first before I put it on. That feels okay. I'm gonna pinch it a little more. That feels all right. Drop it over it. Just kind of rotate this. Forget about the dog part, but you want to rotate the shaft until this slots, or it's the anti-reverse clutch, oh sorry, the ratchet falls into place over the squared bottom of it. And now that's set. So now we can take our plate, cover that up, and it kind of looks like, how does it look? I forgot. Kind of like that. Then we're just going to secure it. The purpose of this is to make sure that it's covering that post so that this dog doesn't fly up when you're using it. While I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and grease this pinion as well, and grease those plates. That I'm talking about the jack. Get inside here. Oh, and this yoke as well. As you can see, it's just a light amount of grease on these things. It just kind of works its way off either way. So, alright, just kind of lay those there. So now for the dogs, I'm sorry, for the drags, we're going to put a light coat of drag grease on it. And what I'm using is cow's drag grease. It's a really light amount, really, really small. Drop that on first. Then we can stick our gear on. Hold on 1 second. Let's go ahead and get the jack and the pinion stack on. That jack's gonna lay just like that. Make sure it's going through that slot. You want the the notched end facing down towards the spool. Just drop it over there like that. Make sure it goes through the hole. Push down until that jack moves forward or moves up, so you can have it set properly. We'll leave the springs for now, we don't need them yet. Put the main gear over it. Gently push it down so you don't damage that pinion gear, but you want to make sure that's set. That feels good. And let's continue on. Notice that this washer, the bottom washer inside the main gear, is different. And I'm just going to double check it because I'm sure it is. Yeah. And the other ones are the same dimensions. Light amount of grease, dropping it in. Get up. This keyed washer there. Then one of these thicker or wider drag washers. Remember, you're doing a real light amount of grease on these things. You're not doing a whole lot. Take our one with the notches. Make sure the notches are facing down. The last washer. And this keyed washer with that beveled edge facing up. And that's it for that. One thing I did not mention was the next to the anti-reverse clutch, the bearing was bad or going bad as well, so I'm replacing that too. Now we could take this sleeve, drop it on, make sure those two notches that you see there fit inside those two channels right there. Just kind of stick it on there and rotate it as I push down. I want to keep that as dry as possible. Now I did add a little bit of grease, a little bit of oil, a couple of drops of oil inside this anti-reverse clutch. Because you need to have a little bit of lubrication in there, not a whole lot. Added some grease, some oil to this cap. I'm going to add some oil to this bearing in preparation for putting it back in, or putting it in. And now we're just going to take this, put our springs on, then just cover it up. Don't think there's anything else to do. Oh, before we do that, we're going to put this in. The easiest way of putting this thing in is I just find to put a little bit of grease here, just so it helps it stay in place. Then turn it over. You want to make sure that the, don't know if you can see this or not, guys. There's you see that little bar that's inside the middle right there? That's some cubby cornered or pushed to one end, and there's a bigger slot on one side than the other. You want that bigger slot going down like this, so that it's flush with the housing. We're going to double check to make sure there's nothing that we're missing here, and I don't think there is, so we're going to keep on moving. Push it over. Now when you get to here, it may be too high. This is kind of where you play with this lever to get it to set. And now, see, it's high there, set better there. Now we're just going to screw it in. I'm only going to add a couple right now just so I can double check everything. So one on the top and one on the bottom. Feels good. Okay, so let's go ahead and start putting everything together, and then we'll put the handle on afterwards. So I'm going to stick this through. Then we can get this backside on. And the way it's going to sit is, there's two little tabs, or two little tabs, looks good, on the plate on this side. They're going to fit in these little channels around here somewhere to line this up properly. If you just kind of wanted to see where it's going to go, it should look somewhere like this area. Sorry, like this. But it really only goes on one way. When you rotate this plate, it only lines up perfectly with the housing itself in one angle, or in one position. Now when you're screwing this in, you may have to move this back and forth slightly to find the holes, but it's not far off. Alright, one thing I did not do was add some grease inside here where that bearing is going to sit. So let me do that now so I don't forget. And also grease the threads on this. Alright, so first goes in the bearing. Kind of just drop that in. Make sure it goes all the way down though. Now we can get our washer, stick that on there. That's the black washer first. Stick on our metal washer. And when we get here, these two washers are different. They're going to be facing each other, so in a concave position. Which one goes first? I honestly, I don't remember, so I can't tell you that. But in general, I'll put the thinner one on the bottom and the thicker one, or the more curved one, on the top. Just drop them over like that. Now I'm going to stick this on before I get too far. Let me add some grease to the threads right here. Put in a free spool. Take this washer, stick it on top. And now we're going to put that clicker in. I'm going to add some grease to the top part of it. And I'm going to take what I put on. I want to take this off. I'll show you an easy, I don't want to say easy, but a simpler way of putting it on there. Take the pin, stick it inside. Make sure the thinner end is what's going inside the spring. And that should stay in place. Now we're going to take this washer, I'm going to stick it down like that. And then I'm going to push this pin in. Get in there. Don't do that. Ay. Ay, mamacita. Push the pin down. And essentially we're trying to put that we're trying to put this washer over it, and I'll show it to you when it's complete. versus trying to talk the entire time, because I just can't do it. Okay, if it slips, I'll put it back. But notice that that washer is keeping that pin inside. So now we're going to take our star drag. Make sure you don't cross thread it. And I think I might have. Okay. And then just turn it down. And notice you're in position to get that clicker to work. Otherwise, I don't know of a better way of doing it. So that's a little trick for you guys there. I think there might, I don't think there's a better way actually. I take that back. I think that's the best possible way of getting this done. Maybe the only way. I don't know. Anyhow, so that's that for getting that pin in. And now we're going to finish up the rest of it. Let me stick my handle on there so I can work this down to get the to get in the position, which it is. Add some grease to right there. Some on the bottom side as well. Now I'm going to open this up so I can add some grease inside here. I have a modified jig head that is kind of stick in there, and it can pop it out. Some oil there, some oil right there. Just kind of work it in. Cover it back up. And now we can go ahead and secure this. Let's get this washer on first. And now I'm going to secure it with the nut. Just be careful or cognizant that you're not cross threading these things. Now the way this lines up is like around the flat side is where it is. Yeah, so I'm going to turn out a little bit more. A little bit more. Too much. Oh, that should be good. Yeah, it's kind of an off kind of thing for this one. It's not necessarily, it's just completely flat or the point. It's just, you kind of got to work at that one, at this one to kind of get it in there. All right, so for this, I'm going to add some grease, some oil to the threads here. Then just stick this back on. And then we're going to go ahead and test this reload and make sure it works the way it should. Alright, so first let's try the free spool portion of it. Feels good. That's where it's locked down. Still feels good. Let's tighten the drag. Good. Nice. Let's feel how much tension we have. Yeah, it's getting tighter. That's good. Let's test the clicker out. And I think that's all we need to test. Alright. Alright guys, so if you enjoyed the video or appreciate the content, please hit the thumbs up button. If you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing to the channel. And that's about it. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.